Now, more stories, insights, and analysis of Illinois policy and politics. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute. Once again, your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with John Tillman, President and CEO of the Illinois Policy Institute. John, many interesting legislative primaries this primary season, March 15th, just a couple of weeks away. One of the more interesting ones because of the incumbent is Mike Madigan, House Speaker Mike Madigan, who has been the House Speaker since Illinois was incorporated in 1818. And he's just another state legislator like everybody else. He's got to run every 2 years in his Southwest Side district. He's facing a challenger from a young man named Jason Gonzales, and I say young because he's my age. It makes me feel young.
You just did that to hurt me. My feelings,
right, exactly.
That's why you did that.
Right, a little distinguish.
Little stab at the gray-haired dude over here.
Well, I meant might be respectful of my elder. John Cass wrote about Jason Gonzales this week and the challenge that he is mounting against Mike Madigan. It's interesting. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm to see somebody who is actually pretty sharp, and this Gonzales kid is. He's got pretty impressive academic credentials. He's well-spoken, been successful in business.
And an interesting backdrop before all that, life story, challenges, growing up, difficulties, got in a little trouble with the law, had a total turnaround, redemption. These are the kind of things that I thought the Democrat Party would champion, that a guy who starts out with some trouble then finds his path, gets great degrees from MIT and I think Duke. But apparently Mike Madigan in his campaign literature is really wanting to focus on the bad part of Jason Gonzales' life. I'm so surprised.
I hope Mike Madigan's life ends how Jason's started, with trouble with the law. We'll have to see how that goes. But
with the Attorney General, Lisa Madigan, I don't know how likely that is.
No, that's going to have to be a federal prosecution of some sort. But Madigan, is Madigan really vulnerable? It seems to me, as I'm watching this race unfold, there's a lot of unbounded hopefulness, but unbounded.
Well, I know you are always more tough on these questions than I am. First of all, I've said all along, I think this is a long shot.
Yeah.
But sometimes long shots come in.
Sure.
Will this one come in? Well, it's a long shot, so the odds are no. But what I think is interesting about the discussion is how seriously Madigan is taking this race. Normally, as you know, the way it works, Madigan chooses his primary opponents. They actually work for him. The people that collect the signatures for his primary opponents to fill the ballot are people that work for him.
Well, it just makes it easier.
It's just much more simpler when you're on both sides of the victory.
Totally.
In fact, to just illustrate just how corrupt the system is, when Jason Gonzales went in 15 minutes before the deadline to drop off his petitions, there was a Mike Madigan employee who had both stacks of petitions for the other two people, because there's 4 people now on the ballot, the other 2, a man and a woman, both also with Hispanic names, just to kind of confuse people about the Hispanic challenger. And it wasn't just that. Those kind of shenanigans, Dan, there have been some parking problems in Mike Madigan's district.
Well, I mean, I think it's nice to see somebody that keeps the Soviet-style system of elections going, and Mike Madigan certainly does, with Gonzales as the exception. But yeah, so Gonzales has a campaign office in the district, of course, and all of a sudden after he moved into his campaign office, and John Kaz writes about this, no parking tow zone signs go up in front of his district.
And I think it was like February 23rd through March 15th, right?
Right. I mean,
just coincidence.
Well, I appreciate
being the primary day.
I appreciate the candor.
Right.
Don't do it like April 1st. Make sure you understand this is just for you and just through the primary.
Right.
The thing that's actually interesting about this is I find this to be representative of a kinder, gentler Mike Madigan. Because back in the day, instead of just putting the no parking signs up to harass your opponent that way, they just rip up the sidewalk.
Right.
So you couldn't walk.
So you couldn't get inside your building.
There'd be horses there, right? Maybe put some scaffolding up too, so you don't have any visibility.
We have 2 weeks left, Dan. Don't give them ideas.
That's true. I'm just saying, maybe Madigan's lost his edge. But it is interesting because the more Madigan does something like this, and when you have a challenger who's not intimidated like Gonzales, this accrues to his benefit. People see him being persecuted. People see him being treated unfairly. People see Madigan for what he is, and that's continuing to happen. I think there's a recognition of Madigan in the last couple of years, particularly since the last year since Governor Rauner's been elected, an awareness of him, the kind of person he is, the kind of ruling class Paul that he is, that maybe hasn't been the case even for most of the last 3 decades.
Yeah, and I think that as that district where Madigan is continues to change demographically, everybody says demographics are destiny. I think Mike Madigan is very likely to prove that's not true this time. But I think Jason Gonzales's play is for the long run and to try to make inroads and say, you know what, it's time for us to pick somebody who represents our interests, 71% Hispanic district there.
Well, the other thing, too, would be interesting if, Democrat primaries, we tend to be more on the center-right side. Certainly I do. And I believe you do, too, in your role as a private American citizen.
John.
Yes. But seeing some new generation Democrats challenge the old guard Democrats, seeing some Democrats that are willing to step out on particular votes, are willing to say that if I'm elected in this primary, I'm not going to vote for Mike Madigan as Speaker. I'm going to be truly independent because I may not affiliate with the Republican Party, but I see the power structure in the Democrat Party, the Chicago Democrat Party, as just as illegitimate.
Well, I think what's interesting about that is, we've long said that the Democrats' agenda has hurt people in the poor parts of the city, people who are dependent on public education in the city. If you happen to be, whether you're a poor, middle class, or affluent African American, it crosses the spectrum. You are being screwed by the system. If you've bought a beautiful house down in Southern Cook County in Flossmoor and you're African American, or you're struggling to survive and you're living in a rental property on the south or west side and you happen to be African American, or for that matter, Hispanic, the Democrat Party has been screwing you for decades, and that is starting to settle into people's consciousness. And that's, I think, what the Gonzales candidacy and the other people you're talking about are all about.
And I also think very much like has started to happen in the Republican Party over the last several cycles. Talented young people in their 30s and 40s, they're getting sick of this wait your turn mentality. The Republican Party did it to its detriment for the better part of the last 2.5 decades until recently, the last several cycles. And of course, the Chicago Democrat Party has done the same thing, and maybe they're sowing the seeds of their own minority status someday.
Well, and the new blood coming up isn't actually interested in having a career in politics and making their living through politics. They're actually interested in changing things, and I think that's also the big difference.